we could go back to 1731. That's when my great-great-great-grandpa come to America. So we're going to start
Take the paper clip off.
in 1918. Our parents, George Raymond Little and Elsie Frances Pierce, were both raised in the Ozarks of southwest Missouri. They married on September the 7th, 1918. They did their courting by horse and buggy.
J.Don, take the paper clip off.
Our brothers, Dallas Raymond and Ernest Calvin, were soon to arrive. Unfortunately, at just 18 months of age, Ernest died of double pneumonia. Mom was pregnant with, it says Walter Gilbert, but that's Gibb at the time. I'm still on here. Gibb turned 1 year old on Ray and Elsie's first move to California. They traveled by a brand new Model T Ford, which Dad purchased for $400. It was December, and the roads were not paved at that time. It was an 18-day journey, and Mom held Gibb on her lap for the entire trip. Dad recalled they had 17 flat tires in one day. And by the way, it doesn't say that here, but this is Highway 66, somewhere in Texas. They arrived in Waterford, California in 1924, and Dad began working for the Beard family.
Take the paper clip off. Red Top, did you take the paper clip off? Good, thank you.
Whatever keeps us organized is like that.
Okay. In 1926, during the time we lived in Waterford on Tim Bell Road, I was the first Californian born in the family. However, Mom and Dad were homesick for their family in Missouri. So it was back to the Ozarks in 1927. But I really think it was to show off me. I think I got my name because Mom thought I was such a little darling, she just left off the ing.
That wasn't in the script.
Oh.
This isn't in the script either, but he thinks that's special, the darling. But we also know of another nickname he had. He followed Gibb and Darl around, you know, as a toddler would, like a puppy dog, they said. So they named him Poodle, and they shortened that to Pooh. When he was an adult, he went to visit the relatives in Missouri, and his grandpa said, "Well, if it ain't old Pooh." And he turned red.
I can even add to that on the food story. When he went to school, they asked his name, and he said his name was Darl. And anyway, then they said, "But what's your other name?" And he started to cry and said, "Pooh." To continue the story, once back in Missouri, Dad worked as a department manager for Sears Roebuck in Springfield. I was born in Springfield in 1928. finally a girl in the family after 4 boys. But Mom said I looked so much like a boy I should have been one. J.Don soon followed in 1930. After J.Don was born, we moved from Springfield to Down on the Hill, about 30 miles south. It was called Down on the Hill because it was down from Springfield and our house sat on top of a hill. Dad came home to the farm on weekends.
Life down on the hill was hard. Water had to be carried up the hill from a well which was 50 yards below. The house had only 2 rooms with a loft for sleeping. A cellar was served as a place to keep things cool. It was a pretty hard life for our parents, but for us kids, we probably didn't mind. Although we had to walk 2.5 miles to a Wise Hill school, a 1-room schoolhouse. We felt blessed to have our grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins living nearby. We got to do a lot of exploring, playing, hunting squirrels and possums with our granddad. Although another drought and the start of a Great Depression caused another move for our family. There were no potatoes or canned vegetables in the cellar for the winter, and Dad's hours at Sears were drastically cut. So back to California. Mom's sister, Alfie Theo, was living near Hughson. Her husband, Ed, was foreman for the Parks family ranch in the Hughson Series area. He promised Dad a job at 25 cents an hour and also a little white house on Whitmore Avenue provided by the Parks family. We arrived in 1934. Dad, Mom, 5 kids, and $25 left in Dad's pocket. But Dad had a job and a place to live. Things were looking up.
And we would like to acknowledge and thank the Parks family for helping our family get established here. They provided Dad a job, a place to live, and also allowed Darl and Gib, ages 12 and 15, to work for them. That's picking up peaches off the ground after pickers went through. A few years later, they rented their fruit dry yard to Darl, Gib, and Darl on a share basis. After the war, Gib rented 20 acres from Lloyd Parks. In 1939, when our family moved to the 25 acres Dad had rented on the corner of Grattan and Service Roads, the Parkses let Dad use their horses on the weekends.
I was born in that little white house on Whitmore in 1935. Mom commented that they needed everything except a baby. In spite of that, I was welcomed into a wonderful family with 4 big brothers and 1 big sister. Not too big. They tell me that I was spoiled, but it wasn't all that good. My siblings were born close together, all 5 of them in 11 years, but I was 5.5 years younger than J.Don. Being too little to join in on all the fun things my siblings did wasn't all that wonderful. In 1940, Dad purchased the 25 acres he had rented on Grattan and Service Roads, plus 20 more across the road through the Farmers Home Administration. After 19 years, moves, and 21 years, Mom put her foot down. "I'm not moving again," she said, and she stayed true to her word.